minutes till people get in and get into the chat. I've just finished a premiere over on YouTube, and this live, hi Richard, will be about the premiere that we just had. It went out at 8 o'clock. If you haven't seen it, I suggest go and watch it, or watch it after the live, because there's some interesting images in it. Unfortunately, I can't find a way on here of sharing those images. Let's see if I can. Hi Brian, I'm trying to get the footprint up, but I can't. It keeps picking up the headboard. I'm going to take it off. There we go, that's better. I can see it was really distracting, that, wasn't it? Well, the video that you've just watched, if you've just watched it, was taken in a place called Littlethorpe in Leicestershire. Now, I said the village had been there about from the 12th century, and I was wrong. I just sort of looked it up quickly. The village has been there over 900 years, and it's actually mentioned in the Domesday Book. So it's very similar, I think, to the Huttonley Hole where I did the Sarkless Kitty case. Hi spirits. So we've got a family, 1982, New Year's Day actually, 1982, during the snow, and Dad, Mum and the kids are looking after a friend's horse, and the snow's deeper that year than normal, so hence when Dad goes out to see to the horse and notices the strange footprints, he goes back and gets the family. He actually phones the police as well, and they came out and they took photographs of it. I don't know whether the police took it seriously or not. He was really open with me, in all honesty. He let me know that he'd sent some of the photographs, had gone to the museum there in Littleborough. And as we've worked together over the past few weeks, he's managed to find the negatives that go along with them. There's scale, which is amazing. You never get scale in a footprint. It's very rare that anyone sends me a footprint that's got a scale item in it, which makes it easy for us to kind of judge the distance. So a men's 11 Wellington boot, it was one size smaller than mine. So the footprints are quite large. A good size, good stride between them, very definite heel. I did notice that. Now, Stuart is not saying that these are Woodwoo's Wildman Bigfoot footprints. He's saying these are what my dad found. We've never really done anything about it in the last 40 years. And, you know, I'm curious. So I'm wondering if anybody else knows of anything from around the area, you know, that kind of thing. That's how he approached me. Now, for all he's done, his paranormal work, he's done strictly supernatural. So it's not that he's not writing a book on cryptids or anything like that. He doesn't really have anything to gain from coming forward. And it's nice because it was quite an easy case for me to work. So Glassy was brilliant, and he nipped down there. I sent him the images, I think, on the Saturday. And by the middle of the week, he'd gone up there and he'd traced the route for me and everything. I explained to Stuart that I couldn't get out there to film with his dad. And he said, oh, not a problem, Dad, I'll do that for you. So Stuart actually filmed his dad at the spots. There are a number of other cases that seem to lead down to Littlethorpe and then keep going. And then if you remember, we've got kind of Cannock Chase just this way as well. So it is a decent route. It's got everything that we normally look for. So there's the railway, which I would imagine trains stop about 11 o'clock at night, 11:30. So that's empty at night time. We've got a couple of brooks and streams that lead to the river. Very easy areas to move around in. And I'm wondering if, because it was unusually snowy that year, that's why the prints were caught. because on another, other times, if it's been a longer winter and we've had a really crap autumn or harvest, as it forced this creature out to look for food. So it's pushed its limits, its boundaries in its desperation. Maybe that's my brain romancing, but do you get what I mean? Is the weather pattern the reason that we've kind of caught it out that year? I think that's what I'm trying to the words that I'm trying to say, because we've spoken in the past about what would they do in really bad weather. What hybrid? What would you do if you ran out of food? We've never really touched on what if they cache food somewhere. A lot of animals will. They'll cache food, for winter, to keep them going over winter. What if they do that? What if there's an area that they cache? Maybe the normal area where he would have got his fish from was frozen at that time because it was a bad weather. And like I say, this year we've had a bountiful harvest. We've had a really, really good harvest. A lot of bird species coming back, and since kind of this pandemic, that's kind of been a bit of a curve. It's been happening naturally. So there's far more food around at the moment this year than they normally would. And I've had 2 flushes, so we've had 2 lots of berries, 2 lots of dandelions, because it's been so mild. But what if this summer was crap? It rained all of the time, and this harvest was pitiful. And then we go into a bad winter, and that winter is harder and longer than a winter we've had in a while. Would that catch them out? Would they take even more risk? Because a bear would. A natural scavenging animal would come closer and closer to humans, even if it was just feeding off our rubbish. That's exactly what happens. And it was one of the reasons back in the day humans didn't stay in one area, because you scare off all of the things you want to eat, and you bring in other predators, because you've hunted and eaten in that area for at least 5 or 6 weeks, and then we would move on. We used to do a season in one area and a season in another area, and even then we'd move around a bit. So it's just me thinking out loud kind of thing. And yeah, Reddy said Mother Earth has been bountiful this year. It's been amazing. Fortunately for me, I have an 80-foot elderberry tree right above my front door. So every time somebody walks in, they squash purple elderberries on my white flooring, and it's been a bit of a thing. So I've suggested to Mark when the weight's off the tree, the chainsaw that he has in a box that he's never got out, he gets out of the box and takes the elderberry tree down, because I'm not doing it again, or you trade off. He needs to buy me a new floor. So I think the chainsaw's coming. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. I'm not really one for moaning about housework, but every time I look down the hallway, first day I thought they were like rat poo or something. There was just all these dots all over my floor, and I was like, oh my God, what's that? And it's just a ginormous. Somebody let it grow into a tree. It should be an elderly bush, but it's probably 30, 40 years old and huge, bigger than an oak. So it just rains down elderberries on you as you come in and out of the house. But yeah, not really good. Lots of dingleberries about up here as well. It seems to be a thing this year, doesn't it? But yeah, back to the footprints. Is it being serious? There are other Reddy Spot. Can't help wondering if it was a juvenile's first winter. See, yeah, maybe. Maybe there's got to be scenarios that would fit with that season, because weather patterns matter. We know that from the mapping. Seasonal food patterns matter. So, like when the salmon come in, or, when the deer are rutting, when the cattle are having rut, you tend to get more Bigfoot sighting reports kind of thing. I mean, I just don't know. And honestly, I've had like 6 weeks off, so this is the only case I've really worked on. But there are a number of other reports that would fit with this, around that area. And we always say, don't we, don't just look at the area where the creature's been seen, because they've got to be coming in and out. They can't just be there all of the time. So it just fit with that. There are reports of strange howls and screams and that kind of thing. That's good to know. And full on, you know, creatures seen, hairy, upright, 7.5 feet tall, look like man, typical woodwoos, Bigfoot things in that area also. And then, like I say, you've got Cannock Chase. Honestly, you could go anywhere from Littleborough if you wanted to. It's quite central to the country. You could follow those rivers and make it up to Scotland if you felt the need. I've been doing some work on a Scottish tribe this month, but you probably don't want to hear about that one. But yeah, so oh, Jamie, hiya Jamie. If that's Jamie, where have he gone? Jamie McLeod. Jamie McLeod knows the countryside like the back of his hand. It's just a really nice area. Sleepy village. Wouldn't have been many people back at the time, especially in 1982. I mean, we're going back 40 years. It'd have been mooching around at night. It looks like there's been a bit of snow before, and then it's froze overnight, and I think that's why we've got the good heel print in it. So it was, as I say, New Year's Day. So none of the new spring foods come in yet. So it'd be interesting to know what the autumn was like that year. What was the summer and autumn like that year? Because once a new food comes in, you're laughing, aren't you? You're fine. But they've got to get between that time, and it can be a long 12 weeks if it's a long winter. Was that the reason for it heading to the barn? Because I've worked cases before, one in Angus. So up in Angus, Scotland, we've got the Carmy Lee encounters. One of those was a footprint in the snow over Christmas one year. And there was a lady in Angus that was watching a site for a very long time, and there was an actual photograph taken, and it was absolutely, it's the best photograph I've ever seen. But it isn't my photograph, and I've never had permission to use it, but it is an absolute cracker. And she said herself that they would be kind of mooching down the side of the barn, almost going for the feed. So it was like, that Mission Impossible thing, so you can't see them. And then there are other reports where they've picked up actual lambs or sheep or pigs and made off with them. So is it a matter of desperation? Bad timing on their part that we've like kind of caught them out kind of that quickly. Hi, Andrew. No, I haven't completely gone. I'll give everyone an update if they want. The scans were brilliant, absolutely brilliant. It's just completely kind of fused with scar tissue from the cartilage and a lot of adhesive. I don't know what they call it. They have a posh name for it. But basically, all of the glucose in my body, because I'm a diabetic, has attached to the collagen within my ligaments and joints. So it's like concreted my shoulders together. So I've had to have it, it's been horrible. I've had to have it manipulated, which means breaking it. And most people have a steroid injection before that for the pain, and I can't because of my diabetes, because the steroid injection can send your sugars high. So I've had to have it with nothing, and it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. But I've gone back for every session, and I've got to go for quite a lot. And he keeps promising me that eventually he'll get to a stage where the pain won't be there, but it's just 24 hours a day. Oh, I hate it. So I can't wear my sling all the time. It drives me mad. But I have to wear it if I'm travelling or anything like that to stop me bones breaking. And just resting a lot, stuck in my bed here a lot. So I've been doing some TikTok stuff and just anything really, because I can't really concentrate really hard anymore. I don't know what's going on. I think it might be all the meds they've got me on. It's really painful, Andrew. It's absolutely awful. And I'm used to pain. I can't sleep with it. It drives me absolutely crackers. So working on this case has helped. And like I say, on TikTok I just do some... Normally I'm ranting about the government. or the state of the UK today. Or I talk about that, you know, the Kabbalah tribe, and we can touch on that later if you want to, but I don't really want to talk about it now while I'm talking about cryptids. I don't know, is there something about that area that's special? Because we've looked at the flesh and blood side, so now we've got to look at the other side. Is it paranormal in some way? Do you remember the devil's footprints that went all across Devon? They were up on Bruce. The policeman said a really strange thing when he was in Littlethorpe. He said, have you looked on the barn roof? And I instantly thought, does he mean like the devil's footprints? Now, not many people know this. There was another case in Scotland around about 2003 where a woman reported a set of really strange footprints that were kind of started in the middle of the field, walked across the home, went up across the roof and down and gone. She didn't hear anything. She didn't experience anything. There was no snow moved, you know, as if something had climbed up there to do it. It was the weirdest thing. So these are not the only footprints that have been found in the UK. I wanted to go into a little bit about that. There have been actual in snow prints, as I say, up in Carmely. And for anybody who doesn't know the Carmely reports, Charmaine Fraser was staying at her grandparents' house when she was about 8 years old, and they live on a farm in Carmely, which is it's not the borders, it's Angus, so it's just kind of in between the borders and the Highlands on the north-east coast. And she was going with a dog down the farm track to get the the newspaper and the mail and everything. And as she was doing that, the dog started to react. She looks up and there's this really big, tall, muscular brown thing looking away from her, and it's kind of got its arm up and it's examining like the leaves on the tree, she said. And she said she was really grateful that it didn't turn around and look at her. And she did what I did. She turned around and she was off. She was running. And then another time to that, they were out pricking raspberries, so a different time of year in Tyler. And they heard a really strange, like, howling roar come from down in the valley. Now, after that was released, years after, somebody else got in touch with me and said that they lived in the Carmely area. They were walking the dog over Christmas time, bad winter year, I think it was 2010, and they found a big footprint in the middle of the snow, and something, caught sight of something moving away where the hedge was, and the dog took off on that one as well. And then we've got the John Rennie footprints. I couldn't find them anywhere online. I've got his book. John Rennie was a mountaineer. And just in the same way as they found those ones on Everest, they found a set of footprints walking up in the Cairngorms. And John Rennie took some photographs of them. They're not online anywhere. They're in the book. But I couldn't find them online anywhere. And then we've got some modern ones, which I think are probably drunken people running from the pub or something silly, you know, with nothing on the feet. And then they normally, like, there's some shoddy ones that just look like absolute people feet. I don't know any other way to put it. Do you get what I mean? Yeah. So I'm having a read now and we're looking at Starmer, aren't we? Now, do you want me to talk about politics? Because I don't mind doing it. Yeah. What do I think about Mr. Starmer? I wouldn't really have to say on it, because they'd absolutely take my channel down. Absolutely. But I'm going to say it this way. One word I never hear said by any political party, race, culture, or creed, is the word Anglophobe. And that is the hatred of anything white, or anything British, or anything English, Scottish, Irish, or Welsh. That's exactly how I feel. I hear the other phobes. I hear the other isms. I get them all the day, given to me all day long in newspapers, Facebook, TikTok, all of that. Never hear the word Anglophobe. Never gets said, you know. And that's exactly how I feel about it. It's I think We've said for a long time, haven't we, there's a massive change coming. There's a tipping point coming for humanity, and we have reached it. And there is a war going on between good and evil. And it's been raging for centuries. And unfortunately, we've come to the cusp of that. And it's affecting everything and everybody on this planet. And it's just too much. And we're trying to live with that and see to our normal everyday lives where we're bombarded with all of this going on. Now, one thing I would like to speak on is there are a number of mainstream media that are absolutely lying to you. Outright lying to you. Quite shocked that the Daily Mail and the Daily Star up to now seems to be giving the truth out there. Anything connected to the BBC is absolutely biased. I watched a video about 4 days ago, and it was titled by the BBC, "Man Offends Local People." And I can't even tell you the name of the town, because if I do, that'll set me beeper off. Basically, he was saying that this one man had attacked a crowd of people. And when I looked, it was one man in his own country, in his own town, being grabbed and pulled and pushed and jostled and moved in a crowd of about 50 people. And he was the only chap there that was white. But they didn't say that. They didn't say one man attacked by a crowd. They said one man. It basically made him the bad guy. Now, I don't know what he did, because that video has clearly been edited, hasn't it? In some way, shape or form. But I'm quite sure the rest of it's out there. They are definitely just dripping poison. They're doing everything they can to, like, divide and conquer. To split us up. So, to distract us, to move us away, digital IDs and all that. It's like, how much more are we supposed to take? You know, how much more are we supposed to take? Now they're talking about splitting the week down to 4-day week. How are we supposed to raise your kids and pay your bills on a 4-day week wage that they're not going to increase? What they're going to do... Sam, what they're going to do, and here's my prediction for you, right? They are going to shut us down. The low traffic areas are already in action. We're going to go straight into digital ID, facial recognition. We're going to shut us down, so 15-minute cities, right? So they're going to get you to order everything online. They want you to order your food online. What they want is you in a bird cage, and they'll bring you everything you need, yeah? And you just stay at home. Don't have an hobby, don't go outside, don't do any of that. Just tune in and stay at home. Because, let me see if I can do it. I don't know how to flag that, man. I don't think it is irreversible, man. I don't think it is irreversible. I really, really don't. I don't feel like that at all. I feel like there's millions of people who haven't cottoned onto it, but they're gonna. There was anybody who's not affected by this, and when I say that, I mean the elite. Anybody that's not affected by this doesn't get involved. But the minute they are personally affected, then they do. So look at the start of Rushka when they started. Only the oligarchs weren't bothered. They were absolutely not bothered. They had all the money, you know. And then the upper middle classes, not the elite, but the next lot up, the rich ones, they weren't bothered either. They didn't get involved until Amazon and companies like that stopped delivering in that country. And they all just picked up tools and left. So it's like, people they will get involved, but you've got to wait for them to be, like, mad enough, angry enough to get involved. I'm sorry if it's shaking. I've got a tray on my leg. Another thing someone said to me the other day was, well, why have you just sat there for 25 years and not done anything about it? It was like, it's not that we haven't done anything about it. It's just for 25 years, we've all just got on. We're trying to fucking feed ourselves and our families and pay the rent and the mortgage without getting kicked out of the house. Hi, Robert. You know, and we expected them to be doing the same. We actually expected our government to have our best interests at heart. I mean, it's not a lot to ask, is it? Seems as though we pay the wages. So what you've got now is a lot of people like me who were not political 2 years ago, who are now like, no, I've had enough. I'm sick and tired of giving the taxman more money than I'm giving myself. I can't do it anymore. I just can't. So it's affecting all of us. And people are, aren't they? People really, really are. I mean, they're doing everything they can to fight back. So there's one good thing, I think, one good thing on the horizon is, as he brings out each, because we've been cuffed, haven't we? We've had our hands cuffed now, and we're taped up. We're not allowed to talk anymore. The freedom of speech has gone completely. We're locking people up for just saying ridiculous things that I've said over and over and over again on every social media platform out there. And many of us have said it and thought it ourselves. Absolutely fucking ridiculous. And then you've got A-list crimes that are just being left to the side because he's so busy protecting the hotels and everywhere else it is that they have to go and protect. I'm sick and tired of people getting arrested for being attacked and fighting back, and the people who attack them walk away free, and the people who attack back are branded as far right. I'm branded as far right. I've been called a follower of the Third Reich, and I don't want, it's nothing to do with any of that for me, nothing to do with any of that for me. I just want our government to do what they promised. I'm not a racist, and it's not about colour, it's not about creed, it's not about any of that. There are a lot of white, scummy people that I would kick off this island just as fast. You know, and I'm being honest. There's people who pay into society, and I don't mean just monetary-wise, as in good people, you know, from all colours and creed. And there are bad people from all colours and creed. There are white people who milk the system. Grandparents will be on full benefits, mum and dad are on full benefits, kids are on full benefits, great grandkids on benefits, and it doesn't bother them. And they are the ones that will sit there and be fed like a larva off the government. Because they're even talking about now, if you're prepared to stay at home, they'll put your money up. They'll give you £1,800 a month more. Loads of them will sign up for that. Loads of them. And they will just sit at home and plug into the system. And then the government have got what they want. And then there's the rest of us who'll be like, not the collaborators. We'll be trying to wake everybody up and shaking whatever we can shake and get people to listen. But I really do believe, for the first time since about 1920, we are about to flip the world. If you know it, we all know it. If we had a vote tomorrow, he wouldn't get in. We all know we'd get in. And it's not because we're 100% on that party, but because they're the fucking raft in a massive ocean and there's nothing else around for us to cling on to. So that's what we've got to do. So if you're calling us these awful names, these names, despicable names that would be used for monsters, if you've reached that level where you're calling your own subjects the people that actually pay into the system, you're degrading them in that kind of way, they're not going to vote you back in. You might as well jump ship now. Because we all know, whether it's this year, next year, or 2009, we're not voting them back in. We need to flip it. How in God's name did the working class man who wanted a decent wage for a decent day's work, enough holiday time so that he can see to his family and kids, and you know what I mean, he's got a balanced kind of life. How does that make you far right? Militant. How? Asking for fairness is wrong. Well, explain this one to me then, right? Why can you fund the Nottingham Carnival? Why can you fund pride marches all across the country? They have marches at Eid. They have marches for lots of countries. They come out on their holidays and they march. But if I do, I'm a racist. I'm far right. If I put a badge on here now with George's cross on, I'm far right. I am a political militant. You know, that's it. That's what we've become. I can't jump between subjects. I can't jump back to cryptids and then onto him and back to cryptids. I can't do it. I can't do it. I would imagine during winter months, this is when they would take anything that they can eat. And look at a fox, look at the natural predatory way that it works, closer and closer to humans all of the time. Yeah, because humans leave food. We're a massive food source for raccoons, the whole 9 yards, aren't they? Regardless of where you live. And large cats have got closer and closer and closer each decade to our back gardens. So yeah, I think it would be exactly the same for them. I've got friends in Ireland, and we were talking. And even I didn't realise it was this bad. I knew it was bad, but I didn't realise it was this bad. In a lot of the rural areas and the towns, when they're doing the primary school places or secondary school places, anyone who's come in from abroad who is legal gets first choice. So they put their kids in. And then anybody who's come here illegally, their children go in next. 1 minute. No, don't. Just bust a fuck off. I don't think anyone tunes in here to look at my face. It does me head in, you know. Would you do that to the male researchers? No, you wouldn't. So don't do it to me. It's really disrespectful. I've lost my thread now because of some... People wonder why I don't want to be on YouTube anymore. It is really bad. It's absolutely mental. Yeah, so I was saying, right, so first ones get then the second ones who are illegal, they get them. And whatever places are left, then the Irish people have to go into a lottery to win those seats. And if their kids don't win in that lottery, then they're getting shipped out for 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours coming back. Explain that to me. Explain how that works. And then you expect the mighty Irish, you don't call them the fighting Irish for nothing, you know. You're going to expect them to sit there and keep taking that, keep lumping it. Go on, keep lumping it. Because normally, when you've gone after Ireland, or you've gone after Scotland, or you've gone after Wales, you've split us up. We've all been split. We've kind of joined in with you on it. But on this one, fuck you, we're all in it together. Go for one of us. Go for one of us when we're all in. If the Irish kick off, the Welsh will go, the Scottish will go, and so will the English. Do it. Light that pyre. Because you've been piling wood on it for years and years and years and years. Then men who get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and break their back to put food on a table, I have so much more respect for them than some poncy... Can't even call him a prodder, can I? Because that's exactly what he is. Exactly what he is. He has sold our country to Islam, and we are supposed to sit here and take it, and I'm not doing it, and millions of us are not doing it, and I can't believe he's walking around. No, Boris Johnson was able to bike his way around London, you know, he was useless, but he was a lovely bloke, wasn't he, Boris, you know, no hatred there, no nothing, none of that. Look at him, can he walk the streets, can he? I loved it when David Lammy come up here and they booed him. And they said to him, you're at fault for this. You've got culpability for this. You've caused this. You know? Just, they have no idea what they've done. They've got no idea. It'll be like, what, when, I don't think there's ever been a time before when the British public have all down tools at once, but we're getting there, aren't we? I wanted to touch on the paid protesters. You know what I'm like? I notice patterns, don't I? And you'll notice it now, I point it out to you. Isn't it strange that hundreds of protesters, probably about 15 or 20 of them, but the BBC tell you hundreds, those protesters for the far left, the correct ones, the ones that want to give everything away, the ones that want to change everything about you, about your children, about everything, because they get offended at some things, So they can't like change and not get offended. We all have to change so they're not offended. That lot all carry the same size sign in the same font. Same messages, same stick. Almost like they've been mass produced. Almost. Hi, Maxie. Almost like somebody is manufacturing them. And isn't it strange that they all get off the same coach or train and then they get brought in? But aren't they local? So if they're out there protesting, why have you got protesters from Leeds going down to Epping? Because you pay for them to go there. You pay for them to go there. You give them money for being there in the day, and you hand them a sign. I can't tell you how many interviews I've watched over the past 3 months where people have gone up to them and said either, how many are you putting up? And they go, oh no, I can't. One lady, I asked a lady outright and she said to me, oh no, I like my privacy. I said, yeah, so do I. I said, but you could still put one up. You're in a 3-bedroom house, you've got 2 bedrooms there. Yes, I know, but I don't want to get up in the morning in my pyjamas and have 2 strange men in my house. I said, no, neither do I, and that's why I'm stood on that side. I asked a number of people while they were there and they said to counter protest against them. And I said, why? What are they protesting for? And they were like, they want to get every person who's not white out of England. No, they don't. That's not what that protest is about over there. That protest over there is about people saying, I want the same upbringing for my grandchildren that I had. I want the same freedoms for my children that I had. I want the same standard of living for my children that I had. You're not listening because clearly the words are not coming across to you. And honestly, what you going to tell your grandkids? Am I an anti-hotel person or to keep them out? No. My son-in-law came from Kurdistan in 2003 and he was only young then. And they had to get him out because of the atrocities that were happening to people. He came here by legal channel. He's worked every day from being here. He went through all of the official channels. He paid what he had to pay. Him and my daughter had to prove that they had more than £20,000 a year coming in. He fathered the children. He's never had a day off work. He works really, really hard. He has never asked the children to change in any way, shape or form so they can be as English as they want to be or as Kurdish as they want to be. I'd be a fool to be against immigrants because I wouldn't be here. I'm mostly Irish. And I've got some Basque in me and I've got Scandinavian in me. And like most Brits, where most of us come from, no, not at all. It's nothing to do with that. If you're prepared to come over here and do the same as I do, I'm for it. I'm absolutely for it. I watch with pride that all of the children that are mixed heritage on this island come forward and say, I'm English too. I am Scottish. I am Irish. I am Welsh. Because we are. Someone's put, so your son-in-law is with your daughter and he's from Kurdistan. Yeah, they're not together now. They split up. They were children when they got together, unfortunately. But he's still there, so he's got children all of the time, does everything he's supposed to do as a father, never been to prison, never committed a crime, has an actual, driver's license, he has a passport, he's done all of that. And I also live in an area of the country where we're a small mining village. So I'm up in Bolton, so I know, Rochdale, Bury, Farnworth, Bolton. They are areas where we have a massive cosmopolitan mix of people. We do. And you don't hear about people fighting around here or like that group of people there and that group of the people there fighting. It's not like that. The best boss I ever had was called Manu. And he was from Kenya. He's an Indian guy and he was from Kenya. And I loved him. I absolutely best boss, kindest man I've ever met on this earth. And his little daughter, when he had her, oh, she was beautiful. She was absolutely beautiful. No, not at all. I'm not like that. And there are, believe me, there are people out there that are my colour that I would kick off this island in a second. I'd be like, you freeloading mother, you can go and all. Of course I would. I hush. I just want what's fair. I am all for blending our cultures, and I also grew up in a time where people who were of certain faith went to those kind of schools. So I went to a comprehensive school because I wasn't Catholic and I wasn't Protestant. Yeah. So it didn't do us any harm. It wasn't like we didn't know. We played out together after school and everything. And then you kind of went to your own schools. And like nobody had to argue about what people were learning. And you learned about other faiths every morning when we went to school, whether it was primary school or secondary school. They made us, they enforced that we sang hymns. We had to do that. But then we'd have to put plays on as kids, and we'd explain about Diwali. And like, I live in a port town, so there's always been a huge cosmopolitan population in the town that I'm from. I'm from Salford. So right, I don't mean to offend you, but you're saying mixing people is good for the country. It's not helping. Well, I don't care if you don't agree with me. That's fine. I'm all right with that. I would challenge you on that and say, if your child was ill or your parents were ill and you went to the hospital and the only person that could save your husband, your wife or your child had come into our country as an immigrant and done exactly what he had to do to be here, would you knock him back? I don't think you would. I don't think you would. It's a foolish thing to think. It is a foolish thing to think. If we start getting rid of people because they're not the same colour as us, well, when do we get to gypsies and travellers? Because that's what happened when it kicked off in Poland. We got rid of genocide of them, and then we went, well, actually, let's get rid of them as well, and rid of them as well. No, I'm not that type of person. I'm all for humanity. We just, you know, there are English, born and bred people in England who should not be here. I would much rather have neighbours who would come to this country to better their lives than Fred and Rose West. I would rather my children went to school with children that were absolutely from another country, who were kind and the same as my children, rather than Robert Thompson and John Venables. Scum comes in every single colour. And you honestly cannot judge a person by what they wear, what's on their feet, how they eat, what colour of their skin they are. Do you know how many people tried to rub my tan off me when I was a kid? Literal scrubbing brush to get me tan off me. I don't feel like that at all. I really, really don't. I think every single person who's in the UK has the same exact right as anybody else, as long as you are not cheating the system or harming somebody. If you're a wrong'un and you're doing wrong things, then you should go. Yeah, of course you could. I also don't agree with the fact that I believe that most of the men that are coming here are not illegal immigrants. That's the difference. They are a fighting army of economic warriors. So you need to split. When you say to me, so you agree with immigrants being here, there's a massive difference between an immigrant who applies the right way and an economic migrant who comes here to better their life by theft or by putting out girls for money or putting people over the channel. I don't care what colour you are. If you're a wrong and go, you shouldn't be here. You shouldn't be around me children. You know, I just think I wouldn't accept that. You've got to understand what I'm talking about is I'm not saying that anybody should come to this country and ask us to accept anything that is barbaric. And I'll tell you why. Because I can't turn up in Canada and say to the people in Canada, right, I've come here because I've had to flee from my country. And I want you now to learn to speak my language because I'm not learning to speak yours. And I want you to accommodate me because I haven't got any money to accommodate myself. And I want you to do that for at least 3 generations, because, you know, it's hard to get a job when you don't speak the language. Oh, and by the way, I've got no money on me, so you're going to have to fund that as well. And I am allowed to do these abhorrent, against humanity things. Do you think Canada would just say to me, not a problem, we'll make everybody change just to accommodate you? No, they wouldn't. They'd say, if you want to come to this country, these are the rules that you have to follow, and these are the things that we will not accept. I don't care if it upsets you. I don't care if it's against your faith. I don't care this. I don't care that. This is not acceptable in the UK. That's it. It's as simple as that. Don't bring your barbarism over here with you. Don't bring your savage ways over here with you. Don't come here and expect me to change everything about me to accommodate you. That is not what it works with. So Barbara's put, I'm Hungarian and I live in the UK since I was 7. And it was my childhood dream with my mum. It was such a big dream. And I can still cry when I hear somebody play a bagpipe on the street. Exactly, Barbara. Exactly that. When I was growing up, I was an outcast because my granddad was a tinker. There's always something about a person that makes them an outcast. So how do I sit here and say that I'm prepared to listen to your paranormal experience and I'm here to listen to your cryptid experience, but I'm not here, you know, oh no, I'm not discussing anything like that, because it might, you know, might affect my channel in some way, shape or form. What makes me English? My mum and dad were English. My grandparents were English, but their parents were not. So I would say that that makes me English. But what makes my daughter Irish? Because her father can have an Irish passport, because his father was Irish. So that's kind of the way it works. What makes you English is being... How do I put... I don't even know how to put it into words. That you see England as your country. So it's not about a passport. You can be from Pakistan, but you feel English. Your parents can be from Somalia, but you're English. So, like, my ancestors are Irish and Welsh, but if anybody asks me what my heritage is, I say English. So it's not about... Yeah, it'd be like saying I'm Anglo-Saxon. Some people will say, won't they? Well, I'm Welsh because my grandparents were Welsh. That's the freedom of the UK. I see myself, until I did my DNA 3 years ago, I didn't think my family had moved out of Salford for generations. So for 55 years, I've just thought I were English and nothing else. I did a DNA test and I realised that, oh my God, I wasn't. And it kind of makes sense to me, some of the things now, you know. My mum was always... People used to say that she was conceived by French soldiers because she had quite a swarthy look. And she's, you know, everybody, but her brothers and sisters were all blonde. And when I look at the DNA now, I get it. I understand it. I'm a complete mix-up. Like an absolute mix-up, of a mutt of like Scottish, English, Irish, Welsh and some Northern European. Yeah, so I'm a big stirring pot. So wouldn't I be an hypocritical person to say, no, I don't agree with anyone coming from another country? It's absolutely ridiculous. What if that man in the other country wants to come here, knows some vital thing that we don't know? Well, maybe not. How do you think people merged into tribes in the beginning? You're allowed to disagree. That's fine. Only's put his disagrees there, like a Pakistani is not English. Well, that's your way of looking at it. It's not the way I look at it. We look at it in different ways. We're bound to, aren't we? Yeah, my 9's 47, I would say. Nobody's going to agree with everything I say, and I'm not going to agree with everything you say. But that's the beauty of being in the UK. Our government wants to silence us, but we shouldn't silence each other because you know, it's what's the word I'm looking for? Censorship, isn't it? You'd be amazed over the years when people have said to me, you can't talk about that on your channel. And they've literally fell out with me because I've talked about something that they didn't agree with. And I've always said to them, but you're censoring me. You're asking me to fight against other censorships, but you want me to bend my knee to yours, and it doesn't work like that. I have a set of laws and boundaries that I live by, a code, you could call it that, and I'm not prepared to go outside of that. And anybody that wants me to change in any way, shape or form to accommodate them, I'm just going to say no. I'll be polite to you and civil to you, but I'm not changing anything about me to accommodate you. That's just not. I agree that anybody radical is completely and utterly out of order, regardless of what begins that radical, because there are some radical English people out there that I do not agree with 100%. Anybody who takes it to the extreme has no right living around women and children and people who are doing their absolute best for society. No, they should not. Yeah, I also don't believe that we should bring war from another country to our island. I also believe that our government needs to stop sticking its nose in where it doesn't belong. We should have our army on the streets right now. People are terrified it's going to kick off. We'll bring the army over, make it stop. People are terrified about the numbers that are flooding in. Put the fucking Navy in the channel. That's what we've got them for. That's what we pay them for. We don't pay them to go and fight wars because you've agreed with someone in some treaty you had in 1982 or something, and we're all supposed to abide by it. No. Andrew's put that he's shocked that I said a code. That's exactly what it is. It's a moral code, isn't it? It's got absolutely nothing to do with anything other than what you are like as a human being. That's probably the best way I could put it. I'm all for people who live by a code, and that code might differ to mine. But as long as they understand that having a bride that's less than the age of 16, 17 is wrong, that happens in my culture as well. And it's completely wrong. Some people's grandmothers had to leave school at 11 to clean caravans. Completely wrong. Absolutely wrong. Shouldn't happen in no forced marriage, none of that. No, it's about choice. You should get choice. And when you come into our country, you are agreeing to that you will stick to a moral code, yeah, and you'll do what's best for, the fellow countrymen. And you understand that when you come here, we have a certain culture, and we need to bring that back for our children. And I am not talking about just to go to war. 5 years ago, they did a survey around where I live, and I live right on the edge of the countryside. So to go to Alder or somewhere like that, you've got to pass the sheep fields and the cow fields. We have a farm that makes the best ice cream in the world and all of that. And they did this survey, and they asked kids if they'd ever seen a cow outside and to draw a cow. And only 8 out of a class of 30 could actually identify a cow. They all picked the black and white one, that you see in the nursery rhyme book or that they see on the telly. And they didn't identify any other breed of cow as a cow. And that tells me that our youth did not grow up like me. They did not grow up like me. They didn't have that town, countryside thing. I want that for kids. If I go up to see them horses and this kid said, do you honestly think that I care what colour those children are? I'll look how they behave around the horses, and some of them will be little sods and others you'll think, oh, they're lovely. But if I went up there and they were kids and they were throwing stones at the horses or they were doing something awful to them, it wouldn't matter what colour they were either. I've been up on that moor and I've moved people from lighting fires that are all colours. Because my code is, you don't light a fire on a moor. It's an eco-habitat. You don't fuck around with horses and upset them and hurt them in any way, shape or form. That's how we ended up getting involved in the whole Kabula Kibala. Was they hurt a horse, they maimed a horse, and I got really, really mad. I thought, oh no, I can't be doing that, and then I had to go and get myself involved. And I've been through an entire rabbit hole since then. Believe me, politics is like light compared to the Kabula nonsense. But you explain to me, how do immigration remove two people from this country, one of which is here illegally and one of which is on a visa till the 18th of November, without upsetting the entire country and every newspaper going against them? So the people in Jedburgh have had to put up with like 6 months of absolute abuse because our government were not prepared to do anything about it. You know? Hi, Iwan. I mean, how do I don't even know how to put it into words. I find doing live streams like this much easier than having to actually have like a case, and I've got to talk about that case for an hour. Because what we're talking about is current, isn't it? You know? It's absolutely current. My grandmother was born in 1921, and that was the year that women got to vote in the UK. And my daughters didn't know that. In fact, my daughters thought that women had always been allowed to vote as long as men. So when I explained to them that they didn't, and working men hadn't had the vote for much longer, there was a time 150 years ago where only the elite could vote. If people hadn't stood up then and done something about it, it would still be exactly the same now. I would not be allowed to vote. I would not earn the same amount of money as a man. I wouldn't have the same amount of holidays or time off as a man. My mum and my dad worked side by side, day and night, they were together 56 years when he passed away. And my mum got a third of the pension my dad got, because obviously during the 60s, the 70s and the 80s, 90s, women didn't get paid the same rate of pay as a man. And my daughters were absolutely shocked to know that. When I got married in 1986, and back then you used to save, do you remember Co-op Green Shield stamps? So because I was getting married, you had a bottom drawer back then. So like, that meant that, because obviously you didn't have the money you had back then. So people would give you stuff for your bottom drawer, like, you know, sheets or like towels and things that you'd use in the household that you were going to. And I had a decent job because I was clever. I was already working computers by the time I was 16. And Pete, my husband, he worked in like the building trade and did windows and stuff like that. So we had a decent amount of money coming in. And I decided that my mum had always had a twin tub. Always had a twin tub. And we were moving into it was an old Victorian, like 3-story bit house. Beautiful it was, near Bewlow Park. And they kind of split it into 3 flats. And we were moving in there, so I decided, it was 1986, I decided I was quite fancy, I was going to go and buy myself a washing machine. So I told my mum, and my mum went, you know what, I've been after a new washer together. Let's go to Red Diffusion. Let's see how many people remember that. So back then, if you remember, you went to like the gas board, or they had their own shop, didn't they? Like the gas board had a shop, and the electric board had a shop, and you bought your products from those shops. So there was no Argos or out like that back then. So me and my mum set off, 2 married women in the 80s. She's 20 years older than me, so we're quite capable. Do you know they wouldn't sell it us? Because unless our husband came in, and my mum turned the shop up. She said, I earn more than my husband, how dare you? They wouldn't sell us washing machines because they had to get our husband's permission to say that it was our money. And that was in 1986. So, you know, I am all for women's rights and working class rights, because, like, come on, if we don't get up and fight, we just go back to when we were serfs. That's all they're going to do with us. He's just going to plug us into the system. Radio rentals, we did have them. And up here we had Granada. I am so old, right? I am so old that my first house that I lived in had 1 floor downstairs and one room downstairs and 1 room upstairs. And the toilet was in the backyard. It was awful. It was like the worst thing ever. So when we moved to the flat, to Sutton Flats, that was way more modern because it had been built in the 1920s. There was no heating or anything like that. We had 1 coal fire, that was it. We were poor, we were right poor back then. And like electricity meters, it was a shilling. That's how old I am, Brian. It was a shilling. And my dad rigged it. So when you put the shilling in, it fell through, but it worked. So my dad's gone now, so I can grass him up. I've never lived in an house where my dad hasn't tampered with at least the electricity meter, the electric meter, and the gas meter, and the water meter. I got to be honest with you. There was one time when he had it up on a crate back in the 80s, up on a Boddington's crate, and the meter went backwards. We learnt to open the door by saying, hang on a minute, mate, we've got to lock the dogs up in case it was the gas man, the electric man. I'm telling you, we were poor. Yeah. I don't know how my mum and dad did it. My mum and dad went from having me. I mean, God, my dad was 16 when they had Jacket. Like, they were 17, 18 when they had me. With nothing they had now. And they ended up, like, in a big posh house because they worked dead hard. They had a really good work ethic. Like, my grandparents had a really good work ethic. And that's what you did. There was no dole back then. You know, there was nobody give national assistance you got back then, and that was like peanuts. It was way different. And I remember times when, if there was no work on the building site, the men would go and line up at the docks to get took on as a day job. And I remember my granddad saying to me that you'd work all day and you'd be bringing all this exotic food off and meat and all these things that your kids had never even seen. And at the end of the day, they'd pay you in pennies and you'd go home and you'd have an out for the kids. And it used to break men, and I'm not surprised it did. You know, it was rough when I grew up. I grew in a rough area. And it was that rough. The government brought, I don't know. We had what we call the dwellings. It was horrible. If you've ever seen like Oliver Twist or out like that, it was literally slum dwellings. It was horrible. Absolutely horrible. And they come in and they close it down. And there was cholera. It was that rough. There was like a massive period of time where loads of people died of cholera and diphtheria. The water was that bad, coming from reservoirs. And that were it. It was normal to my family, and it was absolutely normal. We weren't the poorest people. I mean, we got a car like really quick, and because my granddad made his way up, and they had a lot of money as well, but it was all from graft. None of us have ever been like given money. You know what I mean? My dad didn't leave an inheritance because he believed that his kids should earn their own money. That money that him and my mum had was for him and my mum, and that's how it works. And like what me and Mark has for me and Mark. And I wouldn't, if I had millions of pounds, I wouldn't leave it all to girls. Because I don't want them to just think you can sit there in life and people just give you things. You know? Do you want to do some money things? Here's some money things I remember. I remember arguing with my mum because she'd already given me school dinner money that day and I would lost it. And she said to me, I can't just keep giving you 7 pence, Deborah, like it's nothing. So back in the day, school dinners was 7 pence and a loaf was 7 pence. Packet of Park Drive was 26.5 pence. Every Saturday, like a call of nature, at 10 minutes to 6, you would hear ring out across Salford, Debbie! And it'd be my dad, and I'd have to go down to the jug and bottle and get him his pink. And for anyone who doesn't know what that is, it was a newspaper that come out on a Saturday night, and it had like all of the football results in it, and the dogs and the racing and the horses, the whole 9 yards. So there'd be me and a whole line of men in flat caps, and me, because my dad had sent me. It was that lapse back then that I used to put my dad's bets on and my dad's friends' bets on. So I used to go around like a little bookie when I was a kid and get everyone's bets, and I'd take them to Fred Jones on Fitzwarren Street and put the bets in. And then if anyone else won, I'd collect them all in the hopes that when I took the winnings back, they'd give me a shilling. Yeah, and that was how we started making money, me and my sister, when we were kids. Honest to God. Like my youngest sister, Lindsay, I'm not lying, by the time she was 12, she was working on barges, cleaning, you know, like pleasure barges. Like they all done, you know, like Rosie and Jim, them kind of barges. She used to clean them. But like we've always had to work. So once, I remember going next door as a kid to borrow some bread from it, and the dog chased me out and bit me. So we didn't eat that night. Oh my God. Oh, that's really bad. There was Pat Reen's dog. I once got an ice cream, right? I give my granddad his due. If the ice cream man come, he'd buy every kid in the street an ice cream. And he was one day and there was only me out. And I was like, oh, can I have a 99? And he was like, yeah, you can have everything on it. And Pat Reen's dog come running at me. It was a big collie and it barked. And I threw my ice cream at it. And I still remember how upset I was to this day because he wouldn't get me another one. I had a whale of a time as a kid. A whale of a time as a kid. My granddad used to pile us all on cart. Because you got more money if kids were on cart. And like obviously you'd go around and people would bring out metal and scrap and all of that, and he'd give them like dolly blues and donkey stones for the start. He'd always have like balloons for kids and stuff like that, and them kazoos. Yeah, we loved it. We absolutely loved it. I could never understand why people were always like weird with me about it. He had loads of horses. That was so much fun. And like we grew up in a scrapyard. And there's a picture up somewhere, and I'm absolutely covered in engine oil and everything, and I've got a pair of boots on, and you can't tell what are my boots and what my legs are, I'm that dirty. I absolutely loved it, because where I lived, I was born 15 years after the war ended, 16 years, and they'd still not rebuilt from the bombings. So we grew up, we called them crofts. They were just flattened areas where the Blitz had come, and they just, because he was, the docks was there, obviously. And there was a huge gasworks. There was an oil and gasworks. So the Germans tried to hit that all of the time. So all of those streets were like bombed and hammered. Absolutely battered they were. And as kids, we just grew up on it. There was nowhere else to go and play. And I think that's why Bewle Hill was such a draw for me. Because it was like walking into a different kingdom. It was like walking into something I'd never seen before. So my dad started taking me when I was little. So like on a Saturday, my mum would go through the house, clean the house from top to bottom. So my dad got into the habit of always taking us out on a Saturday morning so she could get it done. And like back then, they worked all week. You know what I mean? They only got the weekend off. And like she'd have to get all the washing done and like get the Sunday dinner done all week and all that. So they had this like little schedule that we did. My sisters would go and do dance or like ice skating, and I'd go to gym with my dad. But we'd go to Bewle Hill. And it was like another world compared to where I'd come from, even though it was like half a mile down the road. It was just a completely different world. It was so posh. And like, it just was. I loved going there. And as soon as I was old enough to go myself, then that's where I went all the time. I just used to go park all the time, go on a wander. And like, as long as I got home before me tea, she'd be fine about it. Yeah. And there was weird fellas about, don't get me wrong, and like, when we were kids, of course there was. There's always creepy lectures about, but it's nothing like today, nothing. I'd be terrified about letting my kid, like young girl, on park on her own. I used to walk to school on my own when I was 7. Because obviously my mum would walk me to school, but then she got caught with my sister. But my mum lived in like a block of flats at the top of the road. The road's like a half a mile long. And the school's at the bottom. And my granddad lived directly in the middle. So he lived on the 21st floor, so he'd just watch for me coming out, and he'd watch me go down, and I'd get as far as Moses Bakery, and he'd wave his tea towel at me, and I'd let him know I could see him, and then he could watch me going to the school playground. And I did that consistently until I left when I was 11, and just never really got into any like bad. Nobody ever tried nicking me or anything. Do you get what I mean? It was like we had a weird postman once, and me and our checker nearly kicked his head and ran off when we were kids. But yeah, there was the odd lecture about. Of course there was. There've always been lectures, but nothing, you know, like today. I didn't grow up near Brady and Hindley. They were on the other side of Manchester. They were in Hattersley from me. Didn't grow up near him, but Jesus Christ, did it have an effect on my childhood? Can you imagine what it was like for mums in Manchester? It had a massive effect on my childhood. And as they were caught and they went, if you think about it, the Ripper started killing her. So as a girl growing up, by the time I was 11, we were already having lessons in school about the Ripper. And then when I was like 12, they started playing that tape. And you could phone in and do it. They did it at the pub. They put it on the radio. We had it in schools. And it was like, it just seemed to be like there was murders all of the time around us, you know what I mean? I remember the night I was coming, I must have been at work, I started work at 16. And I remember coming in and my dad saying, they've got him. And I was like, who? And he went, Ripper, they've got him. And I was like, don't set the Michael. And he's like, I'm telling you, Deb, they've got him. And I was like, is he a Geordie? And he went, no, he's from Yorkshire, he's from Bradford. Yeah, I remember that night. In the same way I remember I was playing on the monkey bars when John Lennon was shot. I was in Beulah and I was on the monkey bars, and this lad ran out of one of the big houses and he was crying and he was shouting, they've shot him, they've shot John Lennon. And none of us believed him. Yeah, but there's certain things in time that happen. And you remember exactly what you were doing that day, you know. I think everybody liked John Lennon, didn't they? I think because we didn't have as much media as back then. You think about it, we all used to wait for the top 40, didn't we, on a Sunday, the charts. So you knew like who'd headed the charts that week. And then we had like Top of the Pops, didn't we, and the Old Grail Whistle chat. So there was musical programs. It's not like today, was it, where you could just download like some album. I got albums for Christmas and birthdays, and other than that I had to buy singles. So I didn't get to buy LPs, as they were called, very often, because they were quite expensive, weren't they? And for some reason, no matter what musical device has been in our house, whether it's a radiogram all the way up to a 60-inch TV, my dad gets carte blanche at that remote. So we had a really fancy music system in the corner with all glass smoke and all that. We weren't allowed to touch it. If you come in and he knew we'd touched it, he'd kick off. What's the point of having it? With this crappy, it was a suitcase, right? Like, you know, a record player that were in a suitcase. And my dad's got this massive, like, stack system in corner, and we're not allowed to touch it. Yeah, Ready Steady Spot, there was the Moors Murderers, there was Richard Morris, wasn't there, at Cannock Chase. He just went on and on and on. Robert Black had also came into that. They looked at him for some of the Cannock murders, you know. It was just, and you know who else? And I've only just remembered. Do you remember the Black Panther, Dennis Nielsen? Not the Dennis Nielsen who killed loads of men and cooked them. The other Dennis Nielsen, who was robbing post offices, and then he kidnapped an heiress, and she died in the sewer system. Does anyone remember him? And he got caught in Chipper, and it was one of the men from Dogs Round here who gave him a good hiding in Chipper. I remember we went to Bolton Dogs with my dad. And he was talking about it. And you think he did what? He was called Dennis Nielsen, but he was kind of, you know, like the ex-army that never made it in there, and like he wanted to be a police officer and he didn't make it in. So he became like this horrible military man at home. Oh, there's two Dennis Nielsens. One robbed post offices and nicked an heiress. The other one is very famous. He lived in Notting Hill in England, and he was a bit of an head guy. So he would get young men, a lot of them, I think there was about 40 in the end, and he'd take them back to his bedsit. Very much like Dharma, very, very much like Dharma. And he was obsessed with the physique and taking the physique to pieces. So like, as Dharma was obsessed with this area. From here to like down, just above your pubics. It was that area that Dharma obsessed on. But with Nielsen, it was the body pieces as a whole. So when he'd moved from one place where he'd done a number of them, and he moved to a new set of homes. And he got to the point he had that many bodies, he had to start flushing them down the sewers. So they had to get a plumber out because the sewage blocked up. And when the plumber looked down, he knew it was human flesh, and he phoned the police, and the police come in. And he had didn't he have an head in a pot? He had genitals in a fridge, several bodies in the wardrobe. He had half of a lad called Stephen underneath the bath. And he just killed that much that he'd ran out of places to put them. So like with Gacy used to bury him under their house, didn't he? And because he was a contractor, they reckon there's a hell of a lot more that Gacy did. And he's had places to dump them. Very much like Fred West. When they came the second time to arrest them all, they came out the first time and they got away with it. And they came out the second time and they had better evidence. Because the kids at school had said, if you're naughty, you'll end up under the cobbles like Heather. So the police arrive at the house and Fred's off on a job, and Stephen, the son, phones him and says, "You need to come, Dad, they're arresting Mum and everything." And he's on a job 20 minutes away, and it takes him 4 hours to come back. What did he do in that the 3 hours and whatever was left of it? He was moving something that he didn't want them to know. The one thing the police have never told you, you'll find it if you dig deep enough, is none of the victims of Fred West at any point ever had the kneecaps. All of the kneecaps were taken off everyone, even his first wife that he did. I don't think that was his first killing, because he was in his middle 20s by then. Not a chance was that his first killing. But he claims that Rena was the first. And the only reason I know this is when I worked for social services in Salford, when I was in my 30s, we had to archive all of the old paperwork and put it onto computers, because I've always kind of worked with computers. And part of that was Rena had run away from Fred, and she'd come here with Charmaine and the child she was carrying to Fred. And for God knows, because it was such a different thing back then in the 70s, they gave a bus fare and told her to go home because she had an husband. She was trying to get back to Scotland to her family. And so she's come to, like, for help here where I live. And they've gone, no, you go back to your husband, lady. And then obviously she got killed and the daughter got killed eventually. And it just, that's the reason I've got myself so involved in this Kabbalah case. Because if anyone clicks onto the Kabbalah case, all they'll see is 3 people who think that they own a small piece of woodland that they don't own. But it isn't. It's 2 child abusers and a girl who's come from another country, who's joined a cult, who's had a baby took off her. They've had 7 kids took off him. It is a whole debacle of a thing, you know. And they are very similar to Fred and Rose. Like, so the woman in the Kabbalah thing, she will entice girls in, and then her husband, you know, they do whatever it is they do. And these girls are the same age as the daughter. It's absolutely disgusting. Because social media is the way it is, lots of people are championing it, and other people are going, whoa, you don't know what's going on behind the background. You really, really do not. You don't want to be helping them. Don't be getting yourself involved in all of that. Yeah, it kind of is the Kabbalah thing. That's what they mean. It's like any new age thing. It's not the actual Kabbalah religion. It's, I've decided that I am the prophet and this is the religion that the prophet is. But he changes it depending on the situation and the circumstances. But it's just absolutely terrifying that, I don't know. It was just bad all around. It's bad all around, and it's still not over and done with. It's bad all around. And honestly, it's cost the taxpayers a fucking fortune. Because she's got 7 kids in care that we're all having to pay for and, you know, look after. Every house she's ever lived in, she's smashed up or set on fire or wrecked it. So we're paying for all of that. Now we're paying for the tourists to be in temporary accommodation when some of our homeless people should be in there. We should not be funding a tourist from America. Because honestly, you should have put her back on a flight. But they can't because her baby's been dumped and he's in social services. And they all 3 of them thought they were going to do the winter in a fucking tiny bit of scrap of a wood next to trading estate in Jedburgh. They just, I don't know, they just rocked up one day. Can you imagine, right? You live in Jedburgh. It's a lovely place. It's just over the border in Scotland. So the woman who lives there rents some pastures for her horses. She has an horse that's 30 mouse, and she has a lot of Shetland, so she rents those fields. And in about April, May, these 3 people rock up on her land and just start lighting fires and decide that they're living there and call it a different name, put it on Google Earth as a different name, and start inviting people from all over the world to come and live there. And then maimed her horses. Just, it's mad. It's a lot stranger than if you just have a little deep into it. It's like, oh, this is a bit entertaining. But when you go down the rabbit hole, it's like, oh, good God. No wonder our country's falling apart. Our police have lost the ability to say, no, that's not acceptable. Our CPS have lost the ability to charge anyone with anything. They say that the prisons are absolutely full with what? Because hardly any cases are going through CPS and going through the courts. It doesn't make sense what you're telling us. Who are they filled with? What's the demographic? I want to know that, you know. What's the demographic in the prisons? Because you're saying every time, you'll know it yourself, every time you watch a crime programme on telly, how many times will it say at the end, charges were dropped, no further action was taken? You know, it's exactly what they do. That's it on your feet. I think that's why it's had the same interest for me as the whole immigration thing. Because the guy in it, Kofi, he is a typical should not be here. He came from Ghana when his wife and child disappeared mysteriously in a car accident. He came over here, never really worked, just went from one single mum to the other, and then kind of cottoned onto this single mum who put up with him. She had 4 kids at the time when she took him on. He's been violent. The police have had to be out for domestic violence. Social services have been involved with the kids since day one. She's been through more cults than anyone I know. And not only were they living like that, they were making the kids live like that as well. So they were dressing them up as like these prophets and sending them into school. And they were terrified of white people. They kept thinking white people were going to do things to them. And it was absolute madness. So they stopped sending them to school and they just kind of insulated them at home. And that's bad enough, isn't it? When you think about it. But that's not acceptable to us in the UK. And she's used the narrative the entire time that we're doing this to her because of her race. If it doesn't matter what your race was, if you were doing that, we would still. You cannot go on somebody's land, shite all over it, and declare it as your own when that person is paying money for that land. You have no right to do that. And the minute we give in to them, it sets a precedent in law that anyone can come into this country and come into your backyard or a garden or a piece of land that you're paying for and say, no, I'm staying on it now. Because but they've only just been pitched. They've been there since, what, April? And they kicked them out end of September. So they've had all of that time. And honestly, hang on one sec. Yeah, he should go back to where he's from. He's broke his conditions. He should have signed again in 2005, didn't do it. So he's not married to us. He's got no marital ties. The children that he's had are in social care and been adopted, so he's got no ties for that. He's not working, so there's no ties for him to work. Nobody be affected here because he's got no family here. So why is he in a detention centre? Why has he not gone back? And that's before we start to talk about the underage girls that he talks to online, and then she brings them over for him, and they have the menage a trois with some young 20-year-old girl. So the last one, the one before last, was killed. There's a whole missing girl and a baby. Her name's Shulamite. She announced her pregnancy in December, and 8 months, she vanished. She announced her pregnancy, and the next thing, she's vanished. And 8 months on, that woman suddenly appears with a baby that's never been spoken about, no pregnancies. It's an absolute den of iniquity. And now another girl, Cora Taylor, who's run away from America with her child, has come here, joined them in the woodland, and they're not allowed contact with children because they've been to prison for offences against children. So then our social services have come in and gone, no, you can't have him around them. You're going to have to leave. And she's gone, no, take the baby. I'm staying with her. So all of that's kind of, it's absolutely mixed up. And it's really, really crackers. And it's like, it's a good analogy for what England, Britain is having kind to put up with now as a nation. Because we all know what steps should take place. We know exactly what should happen. But our government will say, oh, we've got to be sensitive. We've got to be this, we've got to be that. No, why have we? Why have we got to be sensitive? If he'd have come over here and he'd done a great deal for the public and he'd done lovely things and I didn't know anything bad about him, I wouldn't have an argument about him with her. But if he's over here and he's fathering children and he's not seeing to them and he's not, you know, everything he's worked is put in his pocket, he's not paid tax or out like that. No, send him home. Send him back. He should go straight back to Ghana. The other one should go back because she's only here on a tourist visa, and that tourist visa's up in the middle of November. So she should go straight back. I don't understand why we're funding a place for her when there's homeless veterans on the streets. Why are we doing that? Because our government have our hands tied. And if we say, no, that's not right, well, one of us will get arrested. I said exactly the same thing as Lucy. I said, I don't want my tax dollars going to him as a PDF. Don't give him any of mine. And what about the grooming gangs? I said the same thing as her on loads of occasions, and she got arrested. I've said the same thing as Katie Hopkins on a number of occasions, and they ruined Katie's life for it, you know? They pick and choose. Because they just want you to shut up so the rest of the public doesn't hear you and think, hang on a minute. We really, really, really need to push back. And what I don't understand, this is what I don't understand, right? When the Romans first came to get us, they couldn't do it. We lined up on every beach on the northeast coast, man, women and child. And we stayed there in encampments, and they had to turn back and they had to go. Why are we not doing that? They're flooding into Ireland. We should be on their coast. They're flooding in through the northeast coast. We should be doing it. That's where we should be. That's where we should be kicking off. That's where the marches should be. I can't tell you, being a cryptid investigator, how many times I get photographs sent to me, and have done consistently for at least 15 years, of swan wings or wings of a geese, because they think it's a cryptid that do it. And they are so shocked when I say, no, that's probably Roma, because that's what they do. If you see something catching a pigeon and taking it home, I guarantee you, and I can say it because way down there in my gene pool, I'm part of him, that's Roma. They have no respect for anything. Their entire culture is made to make as much money as they can off Georgia. They are programmed for that from birth, to take whatever they can off Georgia. So they would get rid of us in a night time. I see Robert's put about Palestine. I'm going to give you my opinion on that. I don't agree with any foreign war. I do not agree with any war that's about a Bible or a book or a man said 2,000-3,000 years ago. It's 2025. Grow the fuck up. Get with the program. Until you love your children more than being right, that war will continue. Doesn't matter what any president does or any person in the land. And this is on all sides. Until you learn to love your children more than you love being right, this war will never end. And I don't understand any human being that doesn't see a child as a priority. So I don't care where it is in the world. Don't bring it here. Because you're all not thinking of the children. It's like pulling a rag, innit? And then it's the kids. The kids in every society lose out. They do when it comes to war. The only people who win from war are the elite. And every day you fight puts money in their coffers. They sell you the weapons you fight with, and they sell you the aid that you get. And they fund that war in the same way that they sell you the illnesses that they sell you the cure for. Those cures are out there in nature because they nick them and sell them to you. We could obliterate them. There are billions of them, of us. There aren't billions of them, because when you go right to the top, the few that are running it, I was always taught to cut off the head of the snake. That's what we need to do. As a nation, as a global unit, that's what we need to do. And it's happening. Don't give up. Don't think it's changing, because it is. Massive things are changing. Countries are getting together where you would never have thought that they would be doing treaties together before, because they aren't the same as us. They just want to go back to how it used to be in the 1980s before we sold everything off and we suddenly went, oh no, all that coal under you and all those resources that you can use to better the country, don't touch them. Don't touch them. We need to give our money over there to Europe and they'll tell us what to do about the weather. Fuck off. This earth has gone through a million changes, and us digging gas or oil out of our own land, bringing jobs to families and not buying it from countries that are literally shafting us. And that's wrong. So if I was the president or the prime minister or the queen tomorrow, I would instantly, without a thought, my first job would be get on that fucking beach and get in that sea and stop them coming in. My second thought would be you. Every single one of them that's here undocumented, get them out. Yeah? And then it'd be, right, every single soldier or serving vet out there that is on their ass and got nowhere to sleep, get them. Because where we've got rid of that lot, they're going in. We'll pay for their dinners. If we can pay for their dinners and their hotels and their clothing and their bikes and their driving lessons, we can do it for the men that have fought for us overseas and here. We do that. And then we start to see to the rest of us. And we stop paying for diversity. I am not paying for diversity anywhere in this country or outside of that country. You can identify as a tin of beans for me. It doesn't bother me. But don't expect me to change society to accommodate it. And if I say to you, I don't think you're a tin of beans, I think you're a human being, that's not me being offensive, sweetie. That's you taking offence at something I've said. So I'm not changing my entire culture for that. I can be quite radical, but I'm fair. But our priorities are completely the wrong way round. We reward the people that do the least amount. And the people that are struggling, because you've got the elite and then you've got the lower echelon of subhumans, and in between that, you've got families that can't feed the kids who are working, 2 parents working, and they take that much in childcare that mum's only working to pay their childminder. Utterly ridiculous. They should get some help. They should get some benefits. They should get some, you're working, you're paying in, let's make life easier for you. We need to raise the tax level. Nobody who's only earning 20 grand a year should be paying the same amount of tax as someone who's earning £200,000 a year. It should be structured so that each and every man that works isn't paying £80 a week to the tax man or £100, £300. It shouldn't work like that. It should never be like that. If you want people to go back to work and have a workforce, you have to pay them a decent wage. And you have to treat them in a decent way. No 0-hour contracts and all that nonsense that we've all been getting away with for years and years and years. That's all stopping. I just wouldn't do it. I'd get even more radical than that. I'm not paying for translators. Do you know how much money we pay on translators every single year in this country? Get your phone out of your pocket and you pay for a translation app. If you turn up for an appointment and you cannot understand what I'm saying because you haven't bothered or haven't taken the time to use my language, don't expect me to be paying for an interpreter. Don't come to the dole to UC and expect me to pay for an interpreter. You pay for it. You pay for the app. And if you've been here 18 months and you've not started to learn English, why have you not started to learn English? Have you got no intention of joining the workforce? I would be incredibly structured like that, me. I would be like, well, you've not learned it in 18 months. You've got 6 more months. And if you've not earned, the right to be here, get yourself some lessons. You can go on. Do you know how many men come here on student visas and commit crimes on young girls? I've seen at least this year, and I'm not lying, because I've worked on a number of PDF cases and I help them track them down, where they've come here on a visa and been here less than 3 months and they sit on the ground and cry and beg. You came here to do that. Why is he not immediately kicked out of the country that day? If it's as simple as looking at his phone and seeing the messages, why is he not booted out of our country that day? All of this has to be answered. And instead of doing that, he's sitting... Do you know when he called us all PDFs for walking with the flag? That Labour politician, I can't remember his name now, but stood up and said we were criminals, lowlives and PDSs because we walked with a flag. Well, what did your granddad do in the war? Because I guarantee you he's spinning like a rotisserie chicken listening to the words coming out of your mouth, sweetheart. Because they didn't die for this to happen. Explain. Explain to me, mum. My mum's a generation where she lost family members in a war. Explain to me, mum, why her dad had to go away for 9 years and fight for England in the Navy. Get explaining. Because you promised her that if she worked and she never went on benefits, that she would have an amazing retirement. She gets fuck all. Because she hasn't sat on benefits alive. She's paid everything. She bought the house herself. She pays full council tax. All of that because she's worked her entire life. And my granddad's spinning like a rotisserie chicken, Brian. I'm telling you. It's not right. It's not right. If my mum's boiler bursts, right, my mum has to pay for that boiler to get fixed. If a Beebs boiler in the HMO over the road breaks, someone comes out and does that for him. That is completely the wrong way and should not be happening, you know. Where I live, Vinny, they've painted the it's amazing. They've painted we don't have proper roundabouts here. We have painted ones on the ground. So they've painted all of them. Then they've done all the bollards. And then we started hanging flags up. And then all of the guys that own the takeaways come and nicked our flags and took them down. Oh, it's been a right war. It's been brilliant. So now they painted every bollard in the district white. So that they're going to come out this weekend and red them up. Like, oh, it's a full-on war. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. But you know what's funny? We're laughing at each other about it. There's no scrapping. No one's getting beat up. None of that, yeah. It's a banter and things are being said. But they're being said in a way that's not causing an uproar, if you get what I mean. And I've had more stick over the stuff I've done on me politics off average white class people who are on the fucking dole than I have of any other race. Yeah, because they're scared to death. Scared to death because they'll have to actually get up and go to work. I'm not talking about anybody who's too unwell to work. I'm talking about people who haven't worked since 1980 and they could have worked from home and they just haven't. Yeah, I know one guy who gets complete full benefits because when he does that, air blows out of his eye. And because he got indefinite back in the 80s, he's on full everything. But I know people who have had heart attacks that can't even get PIP. We need someone in the system who's like your mum. Because everyone's got a mum who goes, no. No. My mum's like, makes Judge Judy look a bit flighty. My mum would be like, no, it's not happening. I didn't work my entire life for this kind of thing. We need that back. Spirit, you can be as weird as you want about it. What would you rather me do? Argue about flags with him? Or go and beat somebody up on the street because he's a different colour than me, even though he might be a really nice person? I don't know him, so I don't know what kind of moral character he is. If me having a jostle or a banter with somebody else about my flag offends you, well, as I said before, that's on you, sweetie. Aren't you a fool? Being offended is a choice. Disagreeing with somebody is a choice. You're entitled to that. You live in England. You're entitled to as much of a free right to say it as I have, but I don't have to agree with you. Yeah, counter-base has put my mum worked 2 jobs in order to feed us. Exactly that. And we always had, but we just didn't have extra or spare. And we know our parents went without. We know there were times when your mum and dad went without. And you just, as you're growing up as a human, you just think, I don't want that for my kids, you know. I didn't think, Vinny, that there'd be a point in my life where I would ever agree with Maggie. But we wouldn't be in this mess if she was here. I'm not being funny, but we wouldn't. She just wouldn't put up with it. We'd have, the Navy would be in the Channel. The Green Goddesses would be in. You mean, look what they did to the miners. They couldn't kill us quick enough, could they? That's what it'd be like. It just wouldn't happen. It's not, it's happened because we've been, as a nation, we have been pushed and pushed and pushed for at least 3 or 4 decades, telling us that everything we think and say and feel is wrong. And voicing that is wrong. And we've done it to the extent that it doesn't matter now what English people think about living in England. It doesn't matter anymore. We're not the important ones anymore because there's not enough of us for vote, and he needs them in for voting. And that's exactly what it's all designed for, yeah? And I just think there's enough of us, loud enough. There's people like me who can talk, and then there's other people who can go and fight and do all that where you're saying, oh, I'm not worrying about flags, I'm going to go and scrap. You do that because we've all got different jobs in this life, haven't we? And what we have to achieve. I'm not doing that because the wrong people will get beat up, and then we're just back to vigilantism. It's ridiculous. If we're going to do it, we've got to do it in an ordered or structured way, or we end up just as savage as they are. I think we should be like Poland. I think we should have a zero policy. I just think that's it. No more are coming in. We haven't got any more space. It's done. It's full. We can't be unlimitless. Yeah, it's far worse in Ireland, far worse than here. And people are being arrested. That one woman came home from taking her mum to an hospital appointment. She took her mum in the house, went upstairs to use the loo, and there's a vagrant in a bedroom having fun with himself. And she runs downstairs screaming. And there's loads of people who are protesting at the hotel. So quite normally, I would have done exactly the same. He's legged it and gone in the hotel. She's grabbed something and chased him, and I would have done. I put my hand up, I would have done. I'd have been terrified. And she is in prison on remand, and nothing happened to him. They let him go. They just let him go. There's another one. Some guy burnt a holy book. I'm not going to give it the name because they all get upset about it. So this other lad, this man went at him with a bread knife, and he got off. And the guy who burnt the book is on remand. A Labour MP is getting done all the time for interfering with children or having inappropriate, like, photos and videos on their devices, and people from the newspapers and from the media and from BBC are getting done for tampering with children all of the time. Don't get locked up, and they get to keep the wages, but you dare make a comment on Twitter or on social media and say, I'm not happy with this government, you'll go to prison. They won't. Not the rich PDFs, they won't go. But you will for standing up for it. And that's what our country has become. So if you like me mouthing off like this, just going off on a random, you need to check out my TikTok channel, because I never do this on YouTube. I only do it on TikTok. Yeah, but this is not my business site anymore. You know, this is not my big... Roy's only going mad because Mark's gone out and he can hear banging. It's just fireworks going on. So if you can hear him barking, it's just because Mark's not in the house. He goes into instant guard dog if it's just me and him in. I think he thinks I can't defend myself if anything happened. I don't know. I just think we've come to a time where if we're discussing this, we're on a programme where we would normally be talking about Bigfoot or the paranormal or something like that, it's prominent in it within our minds. Actually, you remember when we were growing up? I was talking to Mark about it the other day. When I finished work, we used to go, like, you'd save up all week, and then on a Friday, you go into town and you buy yourself something new and you go out and that. We used to actually walk home from the pubs and the clubs and the thing, and you couldn't do that now where I live. You just couldn't do that now. There's a lot of high crime. There's a lot of county lines. There's a lot of stuff that I didn't think it'd ever end up here, and it has, because obviously we're in a place where we're connected to a lot of major cities. So it makes it easy for things to come in. And we're very close to some major cities, so that also helps with it. And I said to Mark the other week, we were up Winter Hill and we were watching the horses, and I said, you know what? I've just had an awful feeling. And he went, what about? And I said, something in my head said, one day, Debbie, your grandkids will be up here and they'll be all high rises. And it just broke my heart. And I just thought, he's right. We laugh at our grandparents for saying, when I was growing up, it was all fields around here. And I say that now. And it was. They pulled an entire nature reserve down here, pulled it down, put solar lights on it, and a pub called the Pine Farm, which was a bit ironic. And why, I said, why could we just not make like car parks, have them as roofs, and then we don't have to like kill any forests to put them there? But nobody listened to me. They thought I was mental. I watched farms that have been in families for generations and installed, and 500 houses have been built on top of them for people who don't live here, and we can't afford to buy them. They're out of our league. Yeah, and for the like the commuters and stuff going into the. We have a big like logistics north kind of thing, so they're all going there all the time. It's just absolute madness. I think so. Yeah, I think it might be Tinker Girl actually. What I'll do, Mr. Nico, I'll when I finish on here, I'll go across to me TikTok, get me snap and me QR code, and I'll pop it up on the community comments so you can find me. So I just normally, when I'm on TikTok, I'm just Debbie. I don't really do the Debbie Hatswell thing, and we just generally have probably a natter about what's going on that day, or something in the news. So it's just. Last week we had a bit of one because everyone was saying, oh, with the synagogue and everything that happened with the synagogue, it was really, really worrying. And one of the men who was involved in it actually lives at the back of me. So I said, if people want, I'll have a drive up there and do a bit of a film. And somebody said to me, oh, he was Jewish, wasn't he? And I said, no, he wasn't. And he went, well, it was a gay fellow on it. And I went, no. And they were like, are you sure? And I was like, yeah, I'm dead sure. He's called Jihad. So that's a bit of a giveaway, isn't it? And he was a Muslim guy who did it. I said, I don't know him through that. I know him because he was arrested 6 months ago for tampering with a young girl. I said, but I know his dad's incredibly radicalised. So, like, we were able to have a normal conversation about it. Because we were talking about what it's like to live on an estate and realise that that's going on around you. Can you imagine if there was an explosion in their house? Boom. Yeah, the entire estate would go up, wouldn't it? So, and they're not a family that you'd really point a finger at. They're very quiet. I wouldn't even know how many of them lived in there or anything, to be honest. They don't cause a fuss or draw attention to themselves, And then, only about 6 months ago, me and Mark were in the front. We were eating something. We heard this big bang. It was like boom. I was like, what the fucking hell's that? And Mark ran out, and someone had just shot through a window at one of the houses, one of the quietest houses on the street. I've never seen anyone there. They shot through the window with a shotgun. So it could just happen anywhere, can't it? It just turns up on your doorstep. So we end up talking about that. But yeah, Vicky's going for a good night. And I'm not far behind you, Vic. Mark's gone to pick our Layla up from work because he picks her up. She's had a few weird men. Because she's a good-looking young yass. So Mark texts her now and brings her home from work just to be on the safe side. And she's had a couple of shoplifters tried giving her a crack as well. Because she's only little, my granddaughter. She only weighs about 6 stone. She's tiny. And the other week, this lad had come in. And he tried nicking food out of the shop. And what they don't realise is with Morrison's, if it comes out of it comes out your wages, in all honesty. So when you're robbing out of Morrison's and places like that, you're taking the girls on the tills money and everything. So she'd run at him to get the meat back, and he'd bunged her in the eye and hit her right in the eye. But she hit him with a sweeping brush. She's only tiny. Knocked holes out of him with a sweeping brush, got the meat back and everything, sorted all of that out. So a few nights later, Mark drove down to pick her up. And he said, I'm sat in car, because he don't like going in and saying, right, I'm outside. He waits for us to lock up and everything. He said, I'm sat in car and I see this shady lad coming up. He said, and he starts looking like that. He said, and in my head I thought, he's coming to look for our Layla room. He's going to go and rob it, isn't he? So, and as Mark said, I turned the engine off. I took my belt off, like, get out of the car, walked up. He said, and as I gets to the shop door, he comes legging it with like a loaded, like, chocolate. And Layla's legging it behind him. And Mark went, oi, dickhead. And put him on his ass and give Layla the chocolate back. So, yeah, we talk about weird things like that on TikTok if you're interested. But when I was at school, we had this kid in my class and he was teacher's pet. And she kept him in a cage at the back of their classroom. Oh, sorry. Right, I'll go over to TikTok now, and I'll put my link up, and I'll put my QR code thing up, and then anyone who wants to nip over to my TikTok can do. But it's been fun, hasn't it? I can't do one next week or the week after. I'll definitely, I promise you, I'll definitely come back and we'll just have a live like this. We'll just have a natter. Right? Good night, everyone.